Ladies and gentlemen, I am Yusrael, and this, a little later than planned, is my look at the Dreadnought Warbirds recently released into Star Trek Online. Cryptic have given us 3 variants to play with, for the appropriate fee of course. The Scimitar, Falchion and Tulwar classes, with tactical, engineering and science leanings respectively, can be bought individually for 2,500 Zen, or as a set of 3 for 5,000 Zen. Pretty much what we've come to expect from Cryptic's flagship designs. In this case, the primary inspiration was the Scimitar seen in Star Trek Nemesis, with the drone ships taking their cues from the Enterprise episodes Babel 1, United and the Ayna. More on the little guys later, however. Visually, the Scimitar bears the closest resemblance to the version seen in Nemesis, with the Falchion and the Tulwar providing variant parts and colour schemes. The parts can be mixed and matched freely as you'd expect, and each class also comes with its own hull material. The Scimitar retains the midnight blue associated with the Remans, while the Falchion and the Tulwar adopt varying drab greens and browns. The standard Romulan and Reman hull textures can also be used if you want something a bit brighter. In-game, the Dreadnoughts share a basic design, with the principal differences being their console layouts and the special console that each comes with. The core design consists of a battle cloak and singularity core, with the usual powers and baseline 40 power to each system, although engines do get a +5 bonus, allied to a base hull strength of 40,000 and a shield multiplier of 1.1. This is a little weak compared to the Odyssey, 42k hull, 1.15 shields, and the Bortus's 43.5k and 1.0, but neither of those ships have a hangar bay, and a base turn rate of 7 degrees per second does at least mean that the ship will be pointing at its target sometime this week, if perhaps not today per se. Yeah, I said hangar bay. Calling these ships dreadnoughts is actually a smidge misleading. While they've arguably got naught to dread, and have the size, tonnage and flight characteristics of ships like the Galaxy X, Odyssey and Bortus, the hangar bay, 5.3 weapons loadout and tactical commander slot mean that, in many respects, the Dreadnought fights more like the Armitage heavy escort carriers. Speaking of bridge officers, all 3 variants have the same bridge layout: Commander Tactical, Lieutenants in Science and Engineering, with a Lieutenant Commander and Ensign Universal slot providing a significant degree of flexibility, although that fixed Tactical Commander does rather underscore the point that this ship is rather more about killing the enemy than the Odyssey or the Bortus. Finally, the core console layout is the same on each ship: 2 engineering consoles, 3 tactical and 3 science consoles, backed up by 4 device slots. But enough about similarities, let's get on to the differences between the 3 types. The Scimitar is easily the purest damage dealer of the bunch. It adds another 2 tactical consoles, giving you the magic 5, 10 weapon power and the Cloaked barrage console. This gives you a triggered ability called, Cloaked barrage, that does exactly what it says on the tin, allowing the Scimitar to fire while cloaked in a similar fashion to the Burrell and Tavaro retrofits. However, it does fire everything, not just torpedoes, for 15 seconds, and also allows triggered powers like Gravity Well to be deployed, as well as the use of the hangar bays. The downsides are a 3-minute cooldown, the possibility that you'll soak a few hits while firing, and the 50 weapon energy drain you'll take at the end of the effect, although this does regenerate in a matter of seconds. There's an interesting point here, which is that the weapon fire does not appear to gain the ambush bonus from decloaking when fired under Cloaked barrage. This might be an oversight, but it's more likely a balance point. 15% extra damage from an optimum firing position with minimal incoming fire for a grand total of 15 seconds does tend to cross into overkill when you consider that the usual decloak ambush bonus only lasts for 5 seconds. The Tulwar has a slight lean to science, with a +10 auxiliary power bonus and 2 extra science console slots for a total of 5. It'd be a mistake to call this a science ship. It still has that Commander Tactical slot, and it lacks the sensors and subsystem targeting of a true science vessel, but the extra slots do make it easier to mount fun stuff like field and graviton generators. It's the Tulwar's special console that is its real strong point, however. The Singularity Distribution Unit is completely passive and allows your shields to remain both up and fully effective while cloaked, fixing a major problem with the cloaking device, as anyone who's ever cloaked and then realised they still had a high yield salvo coming their way will tell you. As an added bonus, it also reduces the stealth penalty from a charged Singularity core by 50%, which further helps the ship in a prolonged hit and cloak battle. Finally, we have the Falchion. This is a comparatively defensive variant, with 4 engineering consoles, 10 extra shield power, and a second set of shields. Yes, the Falchion's console gives you the ability to trigger a shield that will absorb up to 17,325 damage for 45 seconds. It has a 3-minute cooldown, but as panic buttons go, it's not a bad one, and it will buy you a few seconds to come up with a better plan. Incidentally, despite being a shield, this does function in nebulae, such as the ones seen in the Vault. There's a set bonus, of course. The 2 set bonus is passive, upgrading the ship's base turn by 2 points to 9 degrees per second, which does actually make it fairly manoeuvrable for a cruiser. Still won't turn with an escort or even a science vessel, but with a bit of careful planning that's usually enough degrees per second to get the job done. The 3 set bonus is, as you'd probably expect, the Thaler on pulse that we didn't quite see used in Nemesis. It's a 90-degree cone attack with a 10km maximum range. Everything hostile in the cone will take a large initial hit, followed by the same damage again over 12 seconds as a radiation dot effect. And if you aren't dead after that, between 60 and 90% of the crew will be. According to the tooltip, the damage scales with auxiliary power and particle generators. The initial hit at 39 auxiliary power and no generator skill works out at 28.3k, running up to just over 35k at 125 auxiliary power. Add in a 26.2 particle generator console to that, and you get up to 36.8k. The attack doesn't particularly scale with skill boosts, and to be fair, Cryptic are kind enough to tell you that in the tooltip, so you don't go out and blow a ton of either skill points or cash on consoles. What they don't tell you in the tooltip is that any skill that increases damage output works on this ability as well, like, say, Attack Pattern Alpha. With 6 ranks invested, it increases damage to 33.6k with just 39 power in auxiliary and no particle generators. If you stack everything, that is to say 125 augs power, a single 26.2 console and the attack pattern, the initial hit comes to just under 44,500 damage, i.e. 90,000 damage over 12 seconds, and there are undoubtedly ways to get it higher than that. More particle generator and attack pattern skill, plus abilities like Go Down Fighting. So, is the Thaler on Pulse an I win button? Oddly enough, no. The Pulse is hampered by a very awkward deployment system. It takes 12 seconds to charge, during which the ship slows to a crawl, starts a massive light show to let everyone in the area of effect know what's coming, can barely turn to keep people in the cone of fire, and, critically, everything else locks down. You cannot trigger any other ability, weapon or item for 12 seconds, and once your weapons hit the end of their current firing cycle, they will simply cease fire. In PvP, this will typically result in you either being murdered in 10 seconds, or people just diving out of the way. It's less of a problem in PvE, but things like Borg turbo spheres do have a tendency not to be anywhere near where they were 12 seconds ago. Oh, and if you were thinking of using an auxiliary battery to get a quick and easy power boost, forget it. Without points in Starship batteries, which is usually a dump stat in most builds, batteries only last 10 seconds. The Pulse takes 12 seconds to charge. And to repeat a point from earlier, your other weapons shut down during the charge cycle. This was a problem with the cannon overload on Andorian escorts, and much like those ships, I do wonder if the Pulse does more or less damage than, say, 4 dual heavy cannons, 3 turrets, scatter volley and a torpedo spread could manage in 12 seconds. That said, when it works and when you get a good shot off, it is a thing of destructive beauty. On a plot level, it'll be interesting to see if Cryptic work this use of Thaler on weaponry into the plot of Season 8. For those of you who aren't aware, pretty much every major power in the Alpha Quadrant, the Federation and the Klingons included, have banned the research and use of Thaler on weapons. They are considered to be right down there with saturation nuclear bombardment, groin shots, and the kicking of puppies. And now the Romulan Republic, the good Romulans, the friendly Romulans, not at all like those Talshia Ptak Jai, are deploying them in significant quantities. At the very least, this should result in a "what are you doing?" response from the Federation Council, even if they might grudgingly accept the point that the Republic is, despite the title, a few bootstrapped colony worlds with a lot of very powerful enemies, and that even with Starfleet and the KDF in the area, they need an equaliser. And a promise that these won't be used on an inhabited world. Except Delta Corvi, but that was just a one-off, honest. And while the esteemed councillors are making all this noise on the topic, just how many planets can a sovereign glass on a single load of torpedoes, and precisely how long has General Order 24 been on the books? Moving on from the Dreadnought, or super heavy escort carrier of doom, as I'm tending to think of it, we come to the drone ships. These can only be deployed by the Dreadnought and are a modernisation of the Romulan telepresence ship seen in the 4th season of Enterprise, albeit now with 100% less pesky Ayna. The basic version can be bought for energy credits on New Romulus. The advanced version costs a little over 30,000 dilithium in the dilithium store, and there is an elite version available to fleets that will presumably cost 100,000 fleet credits and 45,000 dilithium in line with other elite hangars. The hangar can support 2 of these drones in space at a time, which is what you'd expect from a hangar designed to accommodate frigates. The basic version is quite a nice little frigate, 31,000 hull, semi-decent shields, and a holographic camo system that allows it to mimic an enemy ship's appearance, even if it does seem to default to a Burrell in the Azure Nebula for some reason. However, it can't mess with IFF, so the effect is mostly cosmetic, although it will switch weapon type to match whatever ship it is mimicking. As for firepower, it packs 3 disruptor arrays, beam overload 1, fire at will 1, and emergency power to shields 1. The advanced and elite versions, however, can mess with the enemy's IFF, causing a confusion effect similar to scramble sensors on their target. They also have plasma torpedoes and upgraded abilities, making them downright vicious in a fight. Assuming a free choice of ships, my preference currently runs elite drones, advanced drones, elite fighters, standard drones, and then everything else. So, to buy or not to buy, that is the question. By and large, the Dreadnoughts, and the Scimitar in particular, are the most powerful warbirds currently available, with some of the heaviest forward firepower in the game, good durability, a flexible bridge layout, and the hangar bay on top. There are some caveats, however. If you're looking for a tank, then consider the Fleet Dederidex instead. It has a thicker base hull, 44.5k, a commander engineering, and lieutenant commanders in both science and tactical. The second caveat is PvP, where a lighter warbird like the Tavaro will simply run rings around the Scimitar and effectively take its big guns out of the equation. Finally, if you're used to the speed and agility of the escorts and just plain hate cruiser handling, then these Dreadnoughts should be avoided, even with the enhanced turn rate from the 2-set bonus. If you're only going to buy one of the Dreadnoughts, I'd suggest the Scimitar. As I mentioned earlier, the 5-3 weapons fit tends to push these ships away from the traditional line of battle cruiser, and more towards an escort carrier fighting style, sending the drones in while lobbing supporting fire from mid-range. This is something that's only reinforced by this ship's ability to mount dual cannons and the tactical commander station. The Scimitar's 5 tactical consoles synergise far better with this style than the more balanced toolbar and the science-focused Falchion. Additionally, the Cloaked barrage console gives you a relatively safe way to soften up a tougher opponent before you decloak to finish the job. The other question, of course, is should you go the whole hog and get the set? Well, if you've got the cash to spend, yes. While the Thaler on Pulse's utility is debatable, mostly thanks to the 12-second lockout of everything else, the ability to keep shields up while cloaked and the extra turn rate mitigates two of the biggest problems with battle cloaking cruisers, and the secondary shielding is a handy extra panic button. The biggest headaches you'll have with this cruiser are the fact that you'll be popping evasive manoeuvres regularly to keep targets under the guns, and that, with the Scimitar's layout, you'll want 5 weapon consoles, the 3 Scimitar consoles, a Borg module, the Singularity Stabilizer, an RCS hybrid console, field generator, kitchen sink, and yeah, want to buy extra console slots. Please then tell. Oh yes, and there's a bridge. This comes with each of the Dreadnoughts and is a fairly faithful reconstruction of the bridge set seen on Nemesis, albeit with slightly brighter lighting. All the expected functions are present, as is the Thaler core seen in Nemesis. For some reason, the bank and library terminals are also in the Thaler, but I'm assured that the core is perfectly safe, unless some idiot fires a hand phaser at it 10 seconds before it triggers. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of my look at the Dreadnought Warbirds. I am Israel, and until next time, farewell.